everyone, it's Mrs. Santilli. It's Monday, April 6th. I hope you had a good day of distance learning in the third week. I know it was beautiful today. I know I got outside. I hope you all did too. I hope you're well and I miss you so much. I know I started the book, Our Principal is a Wolf, last week. I read you the first 2 chapters and I'm going to read you the next 2 chapters tonight. So we left off, and the principal, Mr. Bundy, his assistant principal, Miss Moore, she was sick and he was riding on his bike over to bring her soup. On his way, he met someone who said that they could help him find Miss Moore's house. And the chapter ended where he thought the man was kind of a little peculiar or something wasn't right. And it said he was a hungry wolf in disguise. So the next chapter is chapter 3, Yum, Yum, Yum. It was good of Mr. Bundy to give me such exact directions, thought the wolf as he set off for Miss Moore's house. It didn't take him long to get there. Knock, 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 knock. Who is it? Called Miss Moore weakly from her sick bed. It's me, Mr. Bundy. I brought you some goodies, answered the wolf. Oh no, what if she opens the door? Let's see what's going to happen. Oh, how nice, said Miss Moore. I'm too weary to come to the door, but there's a key in the flower pot. Let yourself in. So it says she was weary to come to the door. That to me says that maybe she was a little nervous to come to the door. Those words were music to the wolf's ears. He found the key, and before Miss Moore knew what was happening, the hungry wolf ate her up in one big bite. Yum, yum, yum. That assistant principal was a very tasty treat, the wolf said to himself. I bet the principal will be even tastier. The wolf quickly put on one of Miss Moore's nightgowns and the nightcap he had found under the pillow. He hopped into her bed, pulled up the covers, and waited for his next delicious course. A short time later, Mr. Bundy arrived at Miss Moore's house with the soup and a huge bouquet of flowers. He was surprised to see the door wide open. Maybe she's feeling better and has gone out for a stroll, he thought. Miss Moore, he called. I'm in here, said a raspy voice. My poor friend sounds even worse than last night, thought Mr. Bundy. He took off his poncho, hung it on a chair, then went to her room. He saw Miss Moore in bed with the covers pulled up almost to her nightcap. He thought her illness was making her look very strange. My, what big eyes you have, said Mr. Bundy. The better to see you with, said the raspy voice. Oh, the better to see you with, said the raspy voice. What big ears you have, said Mr. Bundy. The better to hear you with, said the raspy voice. The bed cover slipped down. My, what big teeth you have, said Mr. Bundy. The better to eat you with, said the raspy voice. Then the wolf popped out of the bed and gobbled up Mr. Bundy in one big bite, soup, flowers, and all. Yum, 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 said the wolf, snacking on his lips. That was a very tasty principal indeed. I'm curious to see what happens next. Chapter 4, Who's for Dessert? Thought the wolf. If the assistant principal and the principal were so tasty, I can only imagine how delicious their students will be. He quickly spit out Mr. Bundy's clothes and put them on. They had tasted terrible anyway. Then he grabbed Mr. Bundy's red poncho and threw it over his head. For a final touch, he went to Miss Moore's bathroom and used a few dabs of her hair gel to slick his fur down neatly. How handsome I look, he said, winking at himself in the mirror. The wolf raced out of Miss Moore's house and jumped onto Mr. Bundy's bicycle. He pedaled off as fast as he could go with the red poncho, flying behind him in the breeze. He followed the road signs leading to Public School 88, arriving just in time to greet the students. Here comes my dessert, thought the wolf, seeing the first children arrive. Good morning, Mr. Bundy, said Hector. That's a great beard you grew over spring break. It sure is, said Roger. Looking good, Mr. B. Thank you, boys, replied the wolf, coughing a little. You'll have to excuse my raspy voice today. I'm a little under the weather. I wonder when they're going to figure out that that's not their principal. Once the bell rang, the wolf followed the students and teachers inside the school. He decided to visit the classrooms one by one. I'll start with the little students first. They'll be excellent taste bud teasers, he thought with a chuckle. The wolf knocked on Miss Tilly's kindergarten door. He walked in with a big drooly smile. "Hi, Mr. Bundy," said Alice. "I like your new beard. Would you please read us a story?" Little Alice was so charming that the wolf had second thoughts about making her his first bite of dessert. "Of course I'll read a story," he replied. He wanted to prove to himself that he was not completely hard-hearted. "I'll let her enjoy the story, and then I'll gobble her up," he thought. "Will you read this one?" asked Alice. She handed him a copy of Little Red Riding Hood. "A fine choice," snickered the wolf, and he began to read. Once upon a time, there was a little girl whose grandmother gave her a beautiful red cape. The girl loved it so much she wore it all the time, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. Just then, there was another knock at the kindergarten door. Knock, knock. It was Roger with a note from his teacher for Mrs. Tilly. Roger didn't want to interrupt when he saw the class listening to a story, so he sat down to listen too. When it came to the part where the grandmother was about to be eaten, Roger saw Mr. Bundy's eyes growing bigger. He saw his mouth watering. He saw Mr. Bundy looking at the kindergarten students as though they were huge scoops of ice cream with hot fudge and whipped cream on top. Roger started to worry because Mr. Bundy didn't seem quite like himself. In fact, he seemed a little wolfish. First, there was his raspy voice. Of course, Mr. Bundy had said he was under the weather. There was also his new beard, but Mr. B probably grew it to mark his anniversary at Public School 88 with a new look. "I'm being silly," thought Roger. Then he froze. He thought he saw something furry poking out from the back of Mr. Bundy's suit. "I sure have a good imagination," Roger thought. "Just because I'm listening to a story with a wolf in it, I think I'm seeing..." Suddenly, the furry thing flicked back and forth. It wasn't Roger's imagination. Excuse me. It was a tail. Okay, boys and girls, I'll be back to read you chapter 5 tomorrow night. Have a great night.